winning the whole fight, winning all rounds, and at the end of the fourth round, unfortunately, that situation what happened. After the 3 rounds, even left after the 4 rounds, she understands she are so much down. She's kind of like losing the fight, and it's kind of like when she felt this is her last chance, and she has to pull like all her power in this position. And few actions what a referee did in the fight, I completely don't understand.
At this point, it's pretty much a given. A champion losing their belt is going to come out on the other side a bit delusional if they go into a rematch with that same person. Valentina Shevchenko now came out of this a bit delusional of what happened in that fight with Alexa Grasso and not coming to terms with reality here. She's accepting that, yes, she was winning the fight, but she says she was dominating the fight, which was definitely not true. She was getting outstruck on the feet and had to turn to wrestling to have success. We don't see that much from Valentina, her getting beat on the feet so much that she had to completely change her style in the fight, shooting takedowns like a wrestler. And yes, she was holding down Alexa Grasso, but it wasn't like she was doing the majority of the damage in the fight. Right, Shevchenko was believing that she dominated pretty much every single round. She made one mistake and cost her the fight, and even the referee had some impact on her losing, stood them up from the ground, and she didn't understand why. Well, this is the reason why. Valentina held down Alexa Grasso in the full guard, never passed the full guard, for 1 minute and 42 seconds. Shevchenko was in Alexa Grasso's full guard, never got out of there, and landed some strikes here and there, but the majority of the time she wasn't throwing strikes. That's why Jason Herzog, the referee, who I think is actually a pretty good ref, did his job and stood the fighters up. And there's a good comparison of what it looks like when Shevchenko is being busy, trying to pass guard, trying to transition and do things on top, instead of just laying down on them and throwing a couple strikes here and there. In the second round, around like the 4-minute mark, Shevchenko got the fight to the ground again, but was passing it to half guard into side control, trying to get the crucifix position, and Jason Herzog never looked to stand it up because Shevchenko was constantly working. But that moment in the third round, Shevchenko did none of this, so there's a good comparison of what it looks like when Shevchenko is working versus when she's not really working too much. And even in her own interview, she kind of contradicted herself where she said, it's up to Alexa Grasso to stand up, and I was doing a really good job of holding her down tight. Yeah, that's why the referee stood Shevchenko up, because she was pretty much only holding her down tight. That's the issue. Now, there's a whole argument if you want to like say the rules are bad and, you know, there should be no stand-ups and stuff like that. I think Joe Rogan believes the same thing. That's a whole different thing. You have to go with what the rules are. If you're sitting in the guard and you're not hurting the opponent, you're not even trying to pass, you're not going for submissions or something, the referee is going to stand it up. Now, different refs have different tolerances. Jason Herzog may want the fight to stand up quicker than other refs, but that's usually how the game goes. And Shevchenko was also talking about the Tyler Santos fight, where Jason Herzog, again, who refereed her last 2 fights, said that he intervened when she threw a head kick and was looking to finish off Tyler Santos. But she said that it could have been a situation that was fair for Herzog to step in, and there was one. I mean, Shevchenko threw a front kick that landed low. It was a low blow. I don't know how much that hurts. If there's any girls watching, does it really hurt that bad? But anyway, you're not allowed to do it. Shevchenko landed low and then went up for a high kick after that, partially lands, and then threw a right hook around the guard that cracked Santos. And that's when Jason Herzog stepped in. He stepped in a bit too late because there was an interval between the 2 kicks, between the low blow and the high kick, that he could have stepped in, but he stepped in after the high kick and then the right hook landed. So I honestly think that was Herzog's mistake of not stepping in there fast enough. He absolutely should have intervened there, unlike what Shevchenko was saying. And this whole mentality of her believing that she was dominating the fight, she was winning 3-4 rounds, and Alexa Grasso was like in a desperate mental state to make something happen because she needed to make something happen, can actually hurt Shevchenko in the rematch mentally. If she goes into the second fight believing that she's going to do the same thing but be more aggressive, because in that interview she did say that she needs to be more aggressive, but probably sticking out with the same game plan, try to take the fight to the ground and do all that stuff, and believing that Alexa Grasso just isn't as confident, or she's going to be in the same kind of mental state that she believes she was, where she's desperate for the finish because that's what she needed to do. That's being delusional. Because in reality, Shevchenko was losing the striking almost completely. Not only was she losing to the 1-2 the whole fight, a simple jab, left cross combo was beating Shevchenko, but even defensively, Alexa Grasso did a good job of rotating around that spinning back kick and got her back, and you know Alexa Grasso is always going to be onto that, even in the rematch. So when it came to the boxing as well as the kicks, Alexa Grasso has a lot of things figured out, and it's going to be even better for her in the second fight, because something's going on with these champions where they're performing way better in the rematch. because Ariel said that it's 12-1 for the challenger to defeat that champion in the rematch. Or should I say, like, the challenger becoming a good champion, they fight in the rematch, and now the new champion usually wins the second fight. When a champion loses, they usually lose the rematch as well. We saw this with Kamaru Usman, we saw this with Joanna, we saw this with Max Holloway. I think Amanda Nunes is the only fighter in recent time where she won the rematch, and it'd be crazy to think that Shevchenko could do the same thing, because Shevchenko is usually looked at as to be on Nunes's level. So if she can make the same kind of thing happen. But the thing about Amanda Nunes was she didn't seem as delusional going into the rematch, and she fought differently. Shevchenko seems like she wants to come in there the same way, maybe some fine tuning here and there, small changes, but not a complete different game plan going into the fight. When we look at it realistically, her wrestling is very effective against Alexa Grasso. Maybe come out in the fight with more wrestling early on than striking. That's probably going to be her best path to victory in the fight, because in the first round, she was striking only. Second round, she did get a takedown, but most of that round was also in the stand-up. It was like in the third round where she really knew, okay, I gotta wrestle, I can't strike too much with her. And Shevchenko should probably take less risks on the feet against Alexa Grasso, make things a lot simpler, go to the fundamentals, and win using that wrestling game plan. But you know Alexa Grasso is going to address this. She's not going to come into the fight the same exact way, because when you win a fight like that, and you go into the rematch, that fighter is actually more looking at the reality of the situation, which is an interesting dynamic. The loser, especially a long-time reigning champion who loses, tends to get delusional, whereas the winner tends to stay in reality. Very interesting how that whole dynamic works out. And that's why I think you see this whole thing where the new champion performs even better in the rematch. I think Teddy Atlas said something interesting where when you become a champion, you get 30% better. But is it that they get 30% better, or is it that their opponent gets worse as well because they're not living in the same reality anymore? They can't accept the loss as it is. So we're going to see, man. Shevchenko is still one of the greatest, right? She's one of the greatest female fighters of all time. Her streak is going to be very tough to match for anybody in that weight class. She's a special talent, great skills, very well-rounded, all of that stuff, and usually mentally strong. But we're going to really see here what kind of adjustments a savant like her can make to turn things to her side.